Hello, thank you for everyone who's been in the waiting room waiting for us to get started. I wanted to do a quick introduction of our speaker today. Martha King is the managing attorney of Martha King PC, a small woman-owned, native-owned law practice dedicated to providing decisive, organized, impactful, highly relevant, practical, exact, concrete, and client-driven law services to governing bodies, businesses, enterprises, directors, officers, managers, authorities, utilities, and schools. The firm is listed in the US and World Report and Best Lawyers and Best Law Firm. Martha was recognized as Best Lawyers as 2022 Lawyer of the Year Albuquerque for her work in Native American law. We've been practicing in New Mexico for over 25 years, and she has her bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Alaska and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Colorado. So I'd like to introduce to you Martha King.
You're fun already. Again, I'm an independent contractor for Gordon Burnell Charter School, and I'll just be presenting on expunging arrest and criminal records. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to replace legal advice. No attorney-client relationship is being formed between us or with you and Gordon Burnell Charter School. Moreover, the laws and the requirements contained in this presentation may change at any time, rendering the information incomplete or incorrect. Some of the topics we'll talk about today include what are arrest and criminal records? Are they being used properly? Where are they used? What is expungement? Where does the state fit in? What is a petition to expunge? What are non-conviction records? What are conviction records? What's an order to expunge get you? And the requirement, what's the requirement that justice will be served? What does that look like? What is the effect of an expungement? Criminal records that cannot be expunged. And the 8 steps to expungement. I think this part is the part that you're all really here for, is if I'm going to do one, how simple can it be? And we're trying to put that down into 8 steps and show you exactly where the forms and everything are that you would need. We'll also go over the waiting period to get an expungement, as well as hit on a couple outlier subjects that are sort of unique, like expunging records involving marijuana offenses or human trafficking or identity theft. They're kind of treated a little differently. So I put those at the end in case those come up for anyone you know. About 1 in 3 Americans has an arrest or criminal record that will show up on a routine background check. Arrests, dismissals, and convictions are public records, and they remain public records unless removed. The American Bar Association estimates there are over 48,000 ways a person can be affected by that criminal record. But the thing that brings me more to this subject is, are arrest and criminal records being used properly anyway? Users of background checks often do not understand how to read and evaluate arrest or criminal records, or do not apply the law correctly if they're applying it even at all. I don't even know if people are looking it up when they get a background check in their hand. And these arrests and criminal records, they affect all kinds of things, especially in employment, caregiver employment, which is very important. Well, all these are very important. Public housing or benefits, leasing, occupational licensing and permitting, schooling, immigration, borrowing, adopting, or even in the social relationship context. These days you could look up, the person on match.com and see if they have a criminal background. All you need is their first and last name and pay the fee. But if arrest and criminal records are being used improperly, expungement becomes an enormously valuable remedy. Because it eliminates human judgment, bias, and error. It can be an effective way to ensure persons are not wrongfully denied opportunities. So what is expungement? Expungement is the removal from access. This is the legal definition, by the way. This isn't my words. Expungement is the removal from access to the general public of a notation of an arrest, a complaint, an indictment, an information, a plea of guilty, conviction, an acquittal, a dismissal, a discharge record, and including a record posted on publicly accessible court, corrections, law enforcement, and internet websites. So if you have a criminal record, without more, it's publicly accessible. I could look you up just by your name, and I'll know what you did, when you did, and how often you do things like that. Or how often you get picked up for that. Even if you didn't necessarily get convicted of it, I'm probably going to form an impression. If you have numerous arrests for a certain thing, I might form an impression on that, whether that's right or wrong, and whether that has to do with being over policed or in the wrong place or at the wrong time. In 2019 and 2020, New Mexico enacted comprehensive laws on expungement. It has really taken a leadership role in expungement for the country. They allow for expungement upon a finding that justice will be served thereby. Again, they're the most progressive in the nation at this point. So what is a petition to expunge? It's the formal request seeking a court order to expunge. It begins the expungement of records process. A petitioner is the person who's going to submit for that record to be expunged. Some of the items that can be expunged are non-conviction records. So get it if you were arrested and acquitted, or what's the word? No life prosecute. Even if the case was dismissed, if there was pre-prosecution referrals to diversion, if there was orders of conditional discharge, and any other discharge, including conditional discharge without judgment. So that whole body of non-conviction, so you get it, you've had a run-in with the police, you got arrested, and I can look it up on your criminal background, and I can draw, make judgments from it. You can now get those removed. And do you see how beneficial that is in the world? Like if you're applying to lease the house for me, or if you're applying to go to my school, or you want an occupational permit to do what you love to do, you can see how that's going to be really important to get that old information off of there, especially if you're not that person anymore. And you could even, maybe the presentation, if the pieces fit together, you could even help somebody who has like a non-conviction, just get that off of their record. And I'll show you the forms and things like that. There's a 1-year waiting period to apply for those. Can't have any new charges. And if a person is eligible, the court shall issue an expungement order within 30 days of the hearing. This doesn't apply to DUIs. This also doesn't apply to breathalyzers or police dispatch records. But all the others, including what is the word? The acquittals and the
no life prosecute, sorry.
the dismissals and all those, they are eligible for expungement. And I'm going to skip right to, so get it, you have a non-conviction, but it's showing up on a person's background check. So we can go to this form, and I attached it in Oh, it doesn't, you guys don't get to see the form when I do it.
And you guys don't see, all right, I'm waiting for a sec. And then I'll share this one just so we can. All right, and from our live studio audience in Zoom land, do you see the document? Anyone wants to unzoom, right? It's our recording, it's what they're seeing. Participants, if anyone
Yes,
could.
we can see it.
Oh, great, thank you. Excellent, and then, well, yeah. So. Okay, here we go. And then on the, we're dealing with the projector as well.
I just love these forms so much, so even though this is a nuisance, it'll be worth it. You see.
Second. This is just for us in the room, folks. See if that gets us back there. And waiting, searching all sources. Thank you guys for your patience. So we can see this. Nope, not at all. Okay, great. All right. And well, I know that our Zoom folks can see it. Ah, so that is. Okay. Well, we'll come back to her when we can. I'm still able to see that. No, we're not able to see anything. Great. Okay. Great. Why don't you keep going? If you want to talk about that, and then I'm gonna figure out how to reconnect us.
Okay, I can catch the words.
Yeah. Here, why don't you, if you want to talk to our Zoom land folks, then I'm gonna think on how I want to reconnect so that it shows that it's not too straight, you know, think one does. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Beth. So there's the PowerPoint.
So I want to show you just how awesome these forms are that are contained in the New Mexico Administrative Code. This is the petition to expunge arrest records and public records upon a release without conviction. Okay, so you would fill this out if someone did not get convicted. They just got arrested or dealt with in some other way like that. So what's good about them is the form, you don't have to read, like, you don't have to go to law school and fill all this out. Just fill out what you can fill out. Like, I don't know what judicial district I'm in, but I can ask Martha, it's a second judicial district. And you can just go through the blanks. So this is a release without conviction. You're going to fill out everything about the person who needs their record expunged. You're going to affirm whether they can't have existing other, new cases. You're going to provide any cases that they do have. You're going to ask and fill out this information, which is going to be simple yes, no's, whether this person has applied for expungement and been denied before. And then you're going to fill out what the case numbers are, what case it was, what the law enforcement agency, those are all still really simple to do, I think. And then you're going to list the date of arrest, the name of offense, the statute or ordinance they were charged with, if there was a not guilty or a
no way prosecuted.
yeah, or a no bill or any of those other ones. You're going to say what the degree of the offense is, like a first degree, whatever. The date of the final disposition. You're gonna state whether the petitioner has any other cases or charges, you know, like you're mixing up this. And then, you know, what this form does is it just takes the statute and overlays it right there. Has it been more than one year since the date that case was dealt with? There's no other charges. They're just really simple check marks you can be putting in there. And then it even fills out the plea to the court. Petitioner asks this court for an order to expunge arrest records and public records in the custody of the following agencies. Then, you know, you'll know where you got in trouble with who, and you'll just be checking those boxes for that person. It even says you even have a box to check for service when you provide it to the district attorney in the district or where the crime occurred. And then you're just filling out still just simple direct information. You have to include a copy of your rap sheet, of the person's rap sheet, and the Department of Public Safety record. And I'll show you how to get those. And then you are including information about the criminal history itself. But you'll notice nowhere in here do you have to make an argument as to why those non-conviction records should go be, you know, I'm trying to get into law school, I can't get into law school, or I'm trying to get a job at Department of Corrections. There's no place out. These are all check mark stuff, and then a place for you to insert the answer. So, and that tracks back to the presentation, which is where right here.
Right there.
So where it says if a person is eligible, the court shall issue an expungement order within 30 days.
So if it's a non-conviction record that is not a DUI, police dispatch, or breathalyzer, then by obtaining one's arrest records, right, or by obtaining the records, filling out this form and filing it within 30 days without anything else, one should be able to have that record expunged.
That's what I'm seeing is, and it kind of makes sense. If I get arrested, but nobody wants to do anything with it, they're dismissing the case, or they're giving them a low press away, or they're
Why is it-
waiting. Why is this, you know, haunting people? And what was that movie I saw? When They See Us, have you seen that movie? I just imagine using these forms if you know, in the context.
Could have done differently. Is there a charge for filing the petition for expungement?
It's $132, and I'll have that in a different
Okay.
slide, unless a person applies to the court for a fee waiver. And it doesn't say a standard for the fee waiver, so I think if you just,
Apply.
if you ask the judge and you say, look, I am having a really hard time right now. This is going on and this is going on, they may just grant it. Doesn't seem like you have to be under the poverty level by 40% and blah, you know, all that stuff that we're used to. Did I? Okay, good. The next one is convictions. I think again. Okay, conviction records. So that had to do with non-conviction records. Now I'm gonna go into conviction records. If a person did violate a municipal ordinance, a misdemeanor aggravated battery, a 4th degree felony, 3rd degree felony, 2nd degree felony, 1st degree felony, or crime of domestic violence. That's what this next part is about. And you'll see the standard changes a little bit. So a petition to expunge one of these type of cases. So a person convicted of a violation of a municipal ordinance, misdemeanor, or felony, following the completion of their sentence and the payment of all the fees and fines and restitution that they may owe, they may petition the district court in the district where the crime occurred for an order to expunge those conviction records. So the court's gonna look at the petition and they're gonna say, have there been any other charges filed against this person? Has restitution been paid at the fees and fines? And then here's the substantive part, really. Will justice be served by an order to expunge? And will justice be served? It takes into consideration the nature and gravity of the offense, the petitioner's age, criminal history, and employment history, the length of time that's passed since the offense was committed and the sentence was completed, the specific adverse consequences petitioner may be subject to if the petition is denied, and any reasons to deny the expungement as submitted by the district attorney. So that's where like more of that lawyering comes in, but it really, you know what lawyers do is we talk to our client, you know, if we're doing our job, and we'll say like, why do you need this gone? And you'll say it, you know, I'm trying to get a job at the Department of Corrections. This has been holding me up. I can't get an apartment in a, you know, leasing market that's extremely tight in Albuquerque anyway, or I can't get that promotion at work because they keep picking someone else, even though I have this really old case I'm not even that person anymore. So, you know, you just work on the language there for why justice would be served by an order to expunge. And the judges are going to know that the legislature is leaning towards helping people who should have those old records taken off. So, you know, they're going to feel the pressure unless you've got some really ugly facts. You know, it hasn't been that long. The guy's a bad guy, scary guy. You know, those are the type of people that are not going to be getting these expungements. But if it's an old case, we've been doing a lot of different things since then. Those expungements, like they can be granted. If they are granted, the statute requires that the proceedings shall be treated as if they never occurred. And officials and the person who received the order to expunge may reply to an inquiry that no record exists with respect to this person. So if you can get it wiped off, it'll get taken off of, you know, state websites, won't show up in your criminal background history, won't be used against you when, you know, you're applying for a loan or anything like that. Those will all be coming off. And if someone asks you, hey, haven't you been convicted before? You can now say, no. Now, if you apply for a job at a bank, there is an exception. They're still going to disclose that information.
Is it when you apply to the bank, or is it arrest or conviction at the beginning?
From what I'm understanding, is banking and anybody regulated by Securities and Exchange Commission, they just want to know, do you get in trouble for stuff, you know? So it's not even, doesn't even have to be a white collar crime that they're going to disclose. They're just going to disclose even if you're a domestic violence person or something. I think they want to know what they're dealing with. So for a person who's been convicted of a crime, there's waiting periods until you can make the application to the petition to expunge. So if you committed a misdemeanor, you're going to have to wait 2 years from the end of your sentence, you're in your probation, you're at the end of your whole transaction, and before you can apply for this, or before you can fill out your petition. You can see the other degrees of convictions and how long you would have to wait. So for example, if you have a first-degree felony or conviction under the Crimes Against Household Members Act, domestic violence ones, you're gonna have to wait 10 years before you can apply for, petition for your record to be expunged. So the state of New Mexico decided it wasn't gonna allow expungement of everything. It's not gonna allow expungement for sex crimes, rapes, sexual assaults, or lesser crimes. It's not gonna expunge the crimes against children or violent crimes resulting in great bodily harm or death. It's not gonna expunge records related to driving while intoxicated either. Even if the person was, even if it was their first offense and they were given a deferred sentence. This just don't go away. They're also not going to expunge embezzlement cases, the white collar crimes. You know what embezzlement is? Embezzlement, like when you steal from your employer or you steal from somebody who entrusts money to you. So those won't be expunged, those are still kind of relevant in society. But there's really 8 steps to get an expungement. I'm going to summarize them and then I'll go into the steps more closely. But step 1 is you're going to obtain those arrest or criminal records. Step 2 is you're going to complete the appropriate forms. Step 3, you're going to fill out the specifics that you need in there. Step 4 is you're going to attach those arrest records, those sentencing records, the court records. Step 5, you're going to file that. You're going to take that down to the district court and file it, pay their $132. And then you're going to provide proper service of the petition. And then you're going to present your case at a court hearing. So there's a lot of information I found on the internet about where to, all the ways you can get your criminal records, but I think the ones that really matter are what's going to be required in the form. So I found a whole bunch of people telling you to get your record over here, get your record over here, and make a phone call and things like that. But really, you're going to need a Department of Public Safety printout, an FBI printout. You can get those from one of those 3 websites, that FBI, that EEO, or that FBI grab sheet. You're going to need those ones anyway, so I don't know why you'd want to get it from any place else. Just get it from what the form is going to require when you submit it. And then if you're not using computers, I think you can call down here to Law Enforcement Records Bureau, but they'll probably make you fill out the equivalent of what's in those FBI forms. They're going to take your fingerprints and do all that.
Is there a charge for this record?
I haven't got them from public sources. Always used private ones because we were in a hurry. We should call them right now. I was thinking about video.
Not a bad idea. Be fun.
Look. So, but I can't project it again. Oh, I can.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, fix it.
Now,
Yeah.
anything
Forever.
they'll see, so.
Okay.
Careful, you know,
For a fee, the FBI can provide individuals with their history. Pay $18 a person. See, that's still cheaper than, so attorneys, we have to be fingerprinted all the time and submit for here and there. I think it's like $50 when we run it.
Yeah, so it's $18 for the FBI.
Mhm.
Cool.
I think it's even less for the state. Like maybe $10 to $15.
That's God.
Yes.
She's always been gone.
Oh my God.
And does the Department of Public Safety include city and counties?
Yes. I mean, will they have both records?
Yes,
Yes.
they will, okay.
So let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Fingerprinting. Annual fingerprinting. $15, identity theft,
And state.
$15 per record check.
Positive certification.
Allow 7 to 15 days. That's
Okay.
surprised they're not more backed up than that. Everybody else. Okay,
Thank you.
and that was about where to get your criminal records. But I'm gonna. I also put this link in there that doesn't want to have to do the slide, but what I really liked about this administrative rule is it kind of summarizes everything. It tells you what arrest records are, what the Department of Public Safety rap sheet is, defines expungement, as an FBI rap sheet, what that is. It defines, petition to expunge, what a petitioner is. And then what I really like too is service, like service of process is typically, I think it's a complicated thing to do sometimes, but it says right here, how you're gonna do service. Service of the petition may be made on the department by any method permitted by 1004. Okay, we don't know what that is. Service by mail, commercial courier service shall be made by certified mail, return receipt requested. Or service by mail shall be addressed to, and it shows you how to get into public safety. So that satisfies those, what's normally something that you have to spend a lot of time finding the person and serving the person. They actually just set it out in a rule to make it really easy. So sometimes the state is really fun, like the state is being really fun on their body of law and their administrative rules. Remember, it's important that you get the right forms. Because you don't want to fill out petition to expunge for a non-conviction if you have a conviction. That's how you want to get to the right forms. But they can all be found right here. I even excerpt, you don't have to look at all the forms on that page. You just have to look at the forms between these numbers. And then what I like about it is it's pointing you in the right direction. You're not accidentally going to be a non-conviction when you see the form. There's a form for conviction, or there's a form for identity theft, or there's a form for marijuana expungement. You keep, it's kind of like they did such a good job with their link. And remember, you have to be starting at 9:51. So if you have an identity theft, you're going to fill that out for something else? No, they kind of made it intuitive. Here's a not a conviction. Here's one if it is a conviction. Here's when petitions to expunge will be automatic, and I'll show you a little more about that later. And then they attach some of the other forms you're going to need, later in the process. But I really like how progressive, helpful this is. So there's going to be one petition for one court case. If the court case had multiple charges in it, you can still petition for those to be dealt with. But if you have separate cases, you're going to have to do separate petitions. But that's okay. I think that's kind of intuitive too. Again, you'll have to incorporate the specifics in the contested ones, the ones that aren't going to be automatically granted. You're going to have to put forth why justice would be served if if this was granted. But I feel like anybody you're probably helping is gonna say why they need it. I don't know, do you think there's some people who can't articulate why they would need expungement of their criminal record?
Like, what do you mean by articulate, like they couldn't connect it to as a
Like
just
how,
like.
how bad their life is? It seems like they wouldn't be maybe seeking expungement if it wasn't affecting them and they weren't able to say it.
I see what you
They're
mean.
typically
I
gonna
need
be,
an expungement because.
Yeah.
Can't get an
I mean,
apartment.
that, whatever, yeah, I lose custody of my children, I can't get a job.
Right.
Yeah.
so those, you know, they make them short, and I think you're actually welcome to write in there, I could lose custody of my child, and this wouldn't be fair because that crime is super old, or so, you know. You can connect the dots and really help a person. And then again, you have to attach those arrest records, court records, and sentencing records. So judges, they're not gonna look up anything themselves. They're processing tons and tons of cases, so full packet has to be there when they get it. So they'll see that your sentence is completed. And that's what happened to your case and their initial arrest. They're gonna need all that in one spot. And you're gonna file that petition with the district court, even if it's a metro court offense or a municipal court offense, it's the district court that has authority to grant expungement. So it's always gonna be filed with the district court. And it's gotta be in the district court where the arrest originated. And there's that $132 fee. You can apply for a fee waiver. When I looked in the second judicial district, you know, tried to look up what the fee waiver standard was. It sounds like you just ask a judge. Then you provide proper service, and again, that form gave you that little cheat sheet how to just mail it to those entities listed on there by certified mail, return receipt. And then you would just argue your case when you're in there. I think it's all going to be straightforward. Even a person about going on their own, the judge isn't going to ask them about all those check marks or anything. What they're going to ask them is the merits. Should it be granted? And remember, it's granted if it's in the interest of justice. And that is, again, that standard is the nature and gravity of the offense or conduct, the petitioner's age, criminal history, and employment history, the length of time that's passed since that happened, and the specific adverse consequences the petitioner may be subject to if the petition isn't granted. And then they'll want to hear what the district attorney has to say on this. So what people would want to be putting together in support of a successful expungement would be anything that shows a person turned, or you know, there was a turning point and they decided to go a different path. So that's volunteer work, letters from friends and family, letters from professors. But judges are impressed by showing that a conviction was a turning point. So you have to submit resumes, awards, accolades, anything, just anything showing you're not in the court process anymore. You're in the regular citizenship process. So the effect of an expungement. If an expungement is successful, the record is removed from most official sources. They will not be shared in employment circumstances, except for remember in this financial one. If an agency is asked, they'll answer, no such record exists with respect to this person. Expunged records will be removed from publicly available online sources like the New Mexico court website, and you can do court lookup, like people's names, that'll come off, all those state records. Those will all come off.
Yeah.
And even though a court record is removed, courts, law enforcement, and criminal justice agencies, they're gonna still have access, but they're gonna need to know this past stuff. And those can still be used in criminal proceedings. And again, if a person applies for a job with a financial institution, the expunged records will be shared. It doesn't sound like it's just white collar. Records are not removed from sources that are not the state's, like the newspapers. And the record will still appear in NCIC. I don't think it's just NCIC for federal firearms purposes. I think it'll still be in NCIC. But they're removed from public view and no longer reported on background checks. So your landlord isn't into that business anymore, nor is your banker. And a person whose record is expunged may answer no when asked if they've ever been arrested or convicted. And while expungement doesn't address all legal challenges that people have faced, it's clearly a crucial mechanism for many people to access necessities like jobs, housing, education, and more. And I'm going to go into the there's three outliers. Marijuana cases. Remember, marijuana was legalized, recreational marijuana was legalized. And the legislature put in it that there'll be mandatory and automatic expungements for all those. So they just put it on the staff all over the state to go through all their records and figure out which ones, or it was illegal then, but it would be legal now. So they had to figure out all those, and then they're to be mandatory and automatic. So they went through 11,000 plus records and issued mandatory and automatic expungement. My understanding is maybe there was some that didn't get done though, because there's still a form in that administrative code for you to seek expungement for recreational marijuana.
But it's just possession.
Just possession.
Not sale.
Yeah.
No, it's a sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that's still illegal can't be.
So if you had enough.
You had enough, it's that record's gonna stay on there. The state went a step further this year and required that if it's a recreational marijuana, which the act would be legal now. But there was a criminal thing before, they're requiring all those records to be destroyed. So it's like it never occurred in the first place, right? There was also an outlier for human trafficking records. So I had to look this up. I was like, what? I don't get it. The statute's written so horribly, you could read it and read it and read it. It's like in English. I still don't know what you're saying. So I had to just rewrite it, but not the statute, the slide. But there are modern day slaves, and human traffickers make them hold on to drugs, sell drugs, steal, assault people, and coerce other people. And so they basically take control of a person. If you can prove that, or if the survivor can, if they can show duress, coercion, use of force, threat, and fraud, they can expunge those human trafficking records. They'll give notice to the district attorney. They can get an expungement order. And again, the case shall be treated as if it never occurred, and all index references shall be deleted. And I thought that was you know, I thought that was gonna be all prostitution, but I guess there's just regular modern day slaves. Where they're just making some big guy do stuff. And they said, I didn't know this either until I was working on this slide. That we typically think of, Americans typically think that's happening in different countries, but it's happening here. We're the big guy, we're the big guys in this area.
The majority of trafficking in this country though is labor, is related to forced labor. So I wonder if they fall under that, because it's all under that umbrella, right? So if you were, let's say, you're under the impression you're a migrant worker, but you are then forced to be labor on someone's farm or something like that. And during that time commit one of those crimes, this would theoretically fall under that umbrella.
And
If you were coerced to commit the crime and good documents.
And the fact that, you know, if more people know about it, then they could actually have that conversation. Like, I know a person who was in those Mormon ones where they took the children and they made the children work.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, then on social security number, you don't know. Anyway, they had to do it. Suppose if they had conviction, they would be eligible for this. This last one is an outlier too. It's if you're a victim of identity theft, you can establish. When you file those petitions, those are automatically granted. Again, they did a good job with that form. So you can see a petition to expunge. And it has the word identity theft. I mean, you wouldn't be in there filling this out. You can't mess it up, you know, they just did such a good job. And you see there's no place where you have to make an argument.
I just had an aha, this isn't to expunge someone who committed identity theft. This is to expunge someone, my record, someone used my identity. Thank you.
And
And
then-
that moment I was confused, but now.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, how does this happen? And I'm like, oh, but someone gets my name when they get pulled
My
over,
name.
when they get pulled over, and then they get convicted. And that goes on there. I was thinking like identity theft, like they use my credit card.
Yeah, except that would be a non-expungable offense, because anything having to do with
Embezzlement.
embezzlement cannot be expunged, right? So using
But
your
I-
credit card would be embezzlement. So the thief of your
They
identity.
get to hold on to that.
They can't lose the record, but you can have it rightfully expunged.
What new? Bought a car and didn't pay it or something.
Yeah.
I always see that on TV, don't they? Take someone else's name, they get pulled over.
Yeah, or they call you and say they're the IRS. The IRS will never call you and ask for your information over the phone. Remember this, they will never, it says it all over their website, do not ever pick up, so. But people give their social security number over the phone and then there goes your identity.
So now it's time for the questions.
That's awesome.
But you know, what I felt like after doing this whole presentation is it's actually easier than I thought it would be, because if it's a non-conviction record, you're just gonna help them fill out the form. And if it's an identity, if it's some of these are gonna be automatically granted. The other ones, they did everything else, so you're just gonna be checking boxes and then you're gonna be making the argument. I can't get a job at the Department of Corrections, right? I've been applying for blah, 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 you know, things like that, but.
It seems like approximately you need about $175 to get the record and to go through all the steps, but. I would love to also, I haven't been, I can help you with the chat if you'd like, Martha, or if anyone in Zoom land has questions, but. As we open up to questions, I want to make sure remotely. Oh, perfect.
And will that, how will be available to us?
It'll actually be
Yeah.
Any number of people. I need that.
Yes.
Because was this information that you did not know that could be helpful? Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought I knew a little bit about this until I got more into it, and then I was like, gosh, that one, I think you get it granted, you know?
Yeah, it's not that hard. And everybody seems to think that it's like this, act of God that has to happen.
Well, we used to, because me and Miss Jessie
looked into it a lot, like a couple years back, and we were just like.
It wasn't as clear, the
It wasn't.
resources have really been streamlined and focused, and they provided forms which are really clear. And that was the hardest thing, was wading through the forms which were not clear. And now a form that says identity check, yeah, right? And a form that says non-conviction and conviction, and those things, and separating those two, the conviction and the non-conviction.
And then making it like a checklist, like you don't have to fill all that out, you just.
It took them a little time since the passage of this really important law and the implementation of it, and it's great that it's something that people can do without hiring a lawyer, without spending $7,000, right? And get their lives back, because it really does derail lives.
So you don't need to hire a lawyer to put in this before, right?
It depends on what kind of
The non-conviction.
expungement you're seeking. If it's an automatic one, like a cannabis one. Gosh, if you could just read through that form, see, check your boxes and then see what else, it looks like it's not discretionary. Sounds like you're just filling out your case number, you just need your criminal record, and then you just sit and take that time and go through it. And when you get stuck on something, you just ask for help, like, what judicial district are you? I mean, that's so stupid, why do we have judicial district names, crazy things,
Right.
or it's-
The
But when you get-
non-conviction one looks the same way, it looks like you just have to have your records in order, that's the thing. And so many people don't even know what is on their record, and that's really the bottom line, go get the records first. And work from there, because so many people don't even know what they plan to do, right?
Yep.
What the final disposition of their case was.
Court cases are intimidating, it's crazy, and people talking, they're judges like, are you, yeah, it's a lot.
What does that mean? I have
You can
no
lose a
idea.
lot of things.
But a conviction in expungement, the step 8 is to actually appear in court.
Yes.
Right, and so you can appear in court without a lawyer if you've got all your ducks in a row, but the look on your face was that you really want to appear in court, because it will actually be a hearing. So there will be someone up at the table, do you know what I mean? And so you may, well, I think you can do this without a lawyer. If
I think
you're
that's
making a complicated argument, it may be helpful.
Right. If it's identity theft, and you have a slam dunk on identity theft, I think you're just gonna wanna go in there and say, this is identity theft, why are you even giving a hearing? We should go, I don't even know why it's opposed, and you're toe to toe, or a marijuana that should have automatically been dismissed. If you go in there and you're just like, no, I know this, I meet the statutory requirements. I think you can get them, and then well, if you know the appellate judges and the Supreme Court judges, they're gonna be able to read it.
It sounded like for the non-conviction and for the automatic, there wasn't a court hearing. You filed your papers, and then based on the papers and the records that you send in, they have 30 days in which to let you know, and it should be, you don't have to be represented.
The only thing,
Right? I mean, is that right or wrong?
the only thing that made it a little confusing is on each of those forms, even for ones that should be automatically granted, you had to say whether you wanted to appear at your hearing by remotely, if you wanted to appear remotely, and I thought, why are they doing that on a
Hearing.
uncontested,
Yeah.
show you where this.
So did you find out about that? Did you find out if there's hearings involved in automatic and non-conviction?
I mean, I wonder if that's was part of the, because I had a hearing for my name change.
You did,
Yeah, it was very.
even though it was a slam dunk,
Even though it had been approved, I followed all the things, I still had to have a hearing with the judge to change it.
so like, let's see, these slam dunk identity thefts. It says on the bottom. Petitioner wishes to attend any hearings in this matter telephonically or electronically. Why would they have it? Because there wouldn't be a hearing, right? But I guess for all.
In the case.
Judges don't like to sign stuff by themselves anyway, they probably docket it, get to appear telephonically. Even in uncontested divorces, when everybody's ready to sign, they'll have the hearing. Make sure that's you,
Right,
grant.
right.
So. I'm thinking you do appear quickly.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody online knows the answer to that off the top of their head, if they've been doing these uncontested.
Yeah, if any of our Zoom audience has a question and wants to just unmute themselves and ask it or write it in the chat, we would love to hear from you.
The two of our alumni have non-conviction record, which. Okay, people wanted that they could do it without a lawyer, it would save them a lot of money.
Yeah. I think we do have potentially some graduates that might want to support through this process, so we can share that information as we learn, but to let the audience know, last year we had some students request from us that they'd love to know more about this process because they really wanted to go through it, and we as teachers have a lot of skills. The law is not necessarily one of them, so that's one of the reasons that we partnered with Martha, and this is so helpful to have so that we can hopefully help those students make a big change in their life. Because without naming any names, I know one student disclosed during this public meeting that they were barely able to, even with public assistance, have a job where they could cover their rent, let alone anything that SNAP doesn't cover, and they couldn't find a job. Yeah, and it's a non-conviction.
It was I think it could be in essence with
Yeah,
everything.
because as you said, housing is so hard to find right now, and potential renters or potential landlords will find any reason to kick out a potential renter. Yeah, so hopefully it's a great skill we now know about for our students that are already affected by it, and hopefully it's not anything that affects anyone in this room, but if it is, it seems potentially doable.
Yeah, it's a conversation to have,
Start going through the
filling it out.
process.
And it could save you $7,000 if that's what it's costing. to
That's the
plan.
least expensive. A friend of mine she had a conviction, but she's going to get her master's so she can be an occupational therapist, which also means she works with kids. And to get into that program, she had to get an expungement. So on top of, let's say $60,000 it costs to get that certification that she had to go into debt for. Yeah, another $7,000 that she had to take out a small loan for, so that she could get a lawyer to get that done. And it's 2 years until she can start working to pay that back. So hopefully, yeah, just
I have a friend too, I asked what would it mean to you if it was expunged, this whole stupid thing, what would it mean to you? And he said, confidence, he knows, you could look it up in New Mexico court lookup, you can look up someone's name and see what the cops think they've been up to or something, so he said it would have probably affected his confidence at work, his confidence in his career and things like that. You feel like less than if you have a rap sheet.
well, I'm gonna, if there's no other question, I'll stop our recording, because I wanted to make sure that we had any relevant questions that was saved on here. And then, if anyone had any questions that they perhaps didn't want recorded on a Zoom, that they wanted to ask Martha, they're more than welcome to. So let me stop that right now. And thank you to all of our folks in Zoom land. I'm gonna stop sharing. And yeah, and I'm gonna end our recording. Thank you so much. All of these resources will be found on the Gordon Bell website. All right.
Cool.